Hey everybody, welcome to episode 6 of It's Just Bodybuilding with my co-host Dusty Hanshaw. And today we have special guest Jose Raymond, and we're going to break down the Olympia. So Dusty, here we are. I guess this is our first post-Olympia show.
I know and it was a good one. We got some action. We got some new champions. So I would say all in all, we're set up, and we got the Boston Mass on. I mean, it's funny how many people were messaging me immediately. When's Jose on? It's just an assumption, like there's nothing else to do. And thank God we still live together, even though we never have lived together.
No, I know. As soon as we announced that we were doing the show, people were messaging me. They're like, "Oh, so we can count on all your the usual suspects." And they would list them, and Jose was like, obviously because of your hookup with Jose, and I become friends with him too, but everyone just assumes he's going to be a guest. So, I don't think Jose is ever better than when he is being asked his opinion.
Fact.
Right? That's when he's at his best. So the post-Olympia show is the prime time to have Jose Raymond on. How do you even introduce Jose? I'm going to let you bring him on because, you've known him for so long. Like, do you call him 212 Arnold Classic champ? Do you call him the guy that turned down a bunch of pro cards until he was really ready for it? Do you call him how big do you get his head before you bring him on?
You know what? I call him the guy that taught me that some silver with an orange slice and cinnamon is a life changer.
Okay.
Maybe it has nothing to do with bodybuilding, but it changed my life. So
there you go. He is Mr. Tequila, none other than Jose Raymond. Let's bring him on the show. Mrs. Boston Mass.
Can you see me?
We can see you too well. Yes, hi. There's your Mr. O shirt. What's going on, Jose?
It's my wife's birthday.
Oh, my goodness.
Birthday. Can you see the
roses? Oh, look at you go. You know how
roses. I might get laid.
Yes.
Boy.
I doubt it.
That's a classic veteran move.
It is.
It's one of those things,
dude.
I know. It's one of those things that it's always going to score a point. So good for you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, let's get the important part. What are we doing with this birthday? Screw bodybuilding. Let's go here.
We're gonna go out to dinner, spend a couple $100.
Trying to get laid. Gotcha.
Trying to get laid, dude. It's been a while.
It's always the same game.
Yeah. I don't have much more game to me, What is this thing? There's something on the screen. Like emojis or something.
Well, I think maybe you can send us starry eyes and hearts if we're having a conversation and
really?
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Do that for sure.
Yeah, lots of that. So Jose, you're wearing your Mr. O shirt. We just had the Mr. O weekend. We were talking about how you're at your best when you're being asked your opinion.
Right.
So, I know you watched the show from afar this year, as did Dusty.
Yeah. You didn't go, Dusty?
I'm not going if you're not going.
Fuck yeah.
He said there's no reason. Yeah. So, but I've also been told by a lot of people that the people who stayed home actually probably got the best view because of the social media packaging and the streaming and the quality of everything that was presented about the Olympia now. So what did you think? How does Jose wrap up what he saw at the Olympia?
I saw exactly what I knew was going to happen. And you, Ron, are one of the few people, and Chris said this, I did a podcast with Chris and Dennis James right before the Olympia in Palumbo, and I said, you guys have no clue how good Hadi Choopan is. Like, Dave was like, nah, he's too small, I'm like, Dave, he's short, he's not small. I mean, he's pound for pound as big as anyone and harder. The only person with better condition or equal to would be Flex or Phil Heath. Those are the only other three on the planet that can match him condition-wise. And I knew it, and I would have had no problem with Hadi winning this show. And I think he personally should have been at very least second. As big as Bonac is, he gave up some size this year. His legs were visibly down. Mm-hmm. Hadi is wider than him with bigger legs, wider back. From behind, the only pose I'd say Hadi lost was the rear double to Bonac. Every other shot, he went toe-to-toe with him, if not beating him. You know?
Right.
And the only thing that Brandon had over him was just sheer structure. You know, when he hits a front double and those lats come out, and, you know, he's a little taller, he takes up more space, just a prettier package. But I'd say Hadi blew him away in density and in overall condition.
Well, I'm not sure if you guys picked it up on the live stream, but when Hadi was announced third, the entire crowd was upset. There was like people going, "Oh, come on!" Like it was not a popular decision at all.
I'm really glad that he made it to the United States for people to be able to see him, because I didn't know it, but you had texted Chris from Vancouver saying the exact same shit. And Chris said to me, he's like, Ron just said it's exact same thing. Like, he was a man with children in Vancouver. And he is that good.
Yeah, I told people that any pro that wins a pro show without posing is extremely dangerous. Right? And
Yeah.
he won the Van Pro against like Nathan, who's a top 7 guy.
Yeah.
Right? He beat him without posing. He didn't have to hit a pose. So like right away you're like, oh shit, okay. And you and I talked about it because we saw him in person. We were like, people just aren't gonna get this.
Nope.
And first thing you said was top 5 at the Olympia, easy, could win it. That's the first thing you said.
Yeah.
You know? Yep. Yeah, for sure.
There's a certain quality that just can't be ignored. And that's the bottom line. And when you say he won without posing in Vancouver, you're right. His biggest strength is those quarter turns. He just comes out, boom, quarter turn. You're like, you can't look at anyone else. You're like, holy shit, look at all that shit going on. His serratus, obliques, like every angle had something special going on. And you know, I think he did the same thing here. I think he might have been slightly better in Vancouver. Only because I think maybe Hani was trying to bring him in a little fuller because he knew the guys were going to be bigger. And I think if he came in 3 pounds drier, it would have been a slam dunk win. I think he's that good.
What do you think, Dusty? What did you think from what you saw?
You know what's funny was prejudging. I was like, all right, he's in the mix, and I actually thought he was better for finals. And I actually texted a friend that's from Iran, and I was like, I said, if he doesn't win, it's a crime. Like, I really thought he dusted him at the finals. And the only thing that was also interesting, and I wish I would have had her on this call, but so when they were interviewing him, like at the press conference and stuff, his translator was not directly translating what he was saying.
Oh, okay. So, tell us more.
He was cleaning it up a little bit. I mean, basically, he was saying, listen, I mean, his main thing was, I am aesthetic with muscle. He's like, I'm not the strongest guy here. These guys might be stronger than me, this and that, but I have aesthetics with muscle mass, essentially. And he was saying, but I'm here to show what that will do, and basically I can win this show.
Yeah.
And he really, I wish, like I said, I had the direct, because she repeated it to me, and I guess he said it like 3 or 4 times, the same thing, and it kind of sucks because the guy wasn't, and I don't know what his translation was, but she was literally laughing because she's like, that's not what he said.
Okay, he's like tidying it up.
Like, you know, yeah. And it's not that he's arrogant, it's that he, and if anything, she said he's very classy about it, but he knows what he's bringing. And it's funny to hear him say, like, he's not the strongest, because I literally laughed when she said that. I'm like, shit, you put them all up there and said to me, who do you think the strongest? I'd be like, that fucking guy, he's nasty. Like, he's got to be the strongest.
He looked, like Jose said, at least second. I understand, like, I know we're kind of going out of order here, but I understand why they went with Curry. I understand it, but that just wasn't my pick. But I understand why they went there. My main thing with Hadi is I thought he beat Bonac in every single pose except, like Jose said, maybe the back double at prejudging. Mm-hmm. But at the finals, when they were doing like the pose down and stuff, I just thought he crushed Bonac. Like, just the width of his shoulder structure. Like, Hadi is thick up top and wide. Like, I remember backstage in Vancouver, he looked like a coat hanger was in his, like, you know what I mean? He looked like he had football pads on. And I know what he's a small framed guy, but he's not small. And then whereas Bonac kind of has the smaller frame, and you can see it in him. Bonac's been harder. That was not the best William Bonac at all, but it was a really good bodybuilder. Like, he looked fucking awesome, but it just wasn't the best Bonac. And I personally, my biggest disappointment, before we go any further, Dusty mostly, but me also deserve a little credit for knowing Kluko was going to be first call out at least. So
I missed my placement.
Yeah, we put him 5th in our predictions. He came out, I think 6 is where he did wind up, right? So congrats to Steve. But my biggest disappointment was, man, I just don't know why the fuck Rolly's trainer is still his trainer. Like, fuck. The 2 biggest fuck-ups of the weekend were him and Derek Lunsford.
Yeah.
Rolly and Derek Lunsford should both be Mr. Olympias right now. And neither one of them are, because of, like, really obviously bad mistakes. Like, who told Rolly he was ready? Oh, you're going to win. No, you're not. Your glutes aren't even remotely shredded. There's no way you're going to win. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
He was smaller.
Legs were smaller. Yeah.
Here's the thing with Rolly. I think he's at that age now that I hit a few years ago when you just aren't improving and everyone around you is. And, you know, he maxed out. I think that version of him last year at the Olympia, or even the year before in Australia, those were the 2 best versions we'll ever see of him. I think he's got to be 42, 41, 42. So this knee injury we heard about in January, he had surgery. That's never going away. So he's not going to be what we saw last year. He's never going to become 39 again or 40 again. He's going to move forward at 41, 42, 43. It's harder with injuries to ever produce that physique that we think of as Rolly. So I think we've seen the best of him. The guy's awesome. I love him. But I think he's dealing with some serious injuries. It doesn't matter who his trainer is. It doesn't really matter what he takes or what you're going to start seeing either a smaller, leaner version or a bigger, softer version. There's not going to be that giant beast that we've seen in the past.
We're not going to see another leap forward.
You know, Ron, you hit that age with just injuries. They're not, catastrophic, but they never go away.
Yeah, they're just become little permanent things.
You can't do the things you did. And to be the best in the world, I bet he's battling something way worse than we know, and he made it through and was able to pull off a 4th place. I did hear rumors. I didn't hear a name of who it was, but supposedly someone was injured. One of the top 5 guys was injured enough to pull out, but didn't pull out. And I'm guaranteeing it was him.
Oh, okay. That's well. I mean, that would explain everything.
Yeah.
Because it's a mystery as to how how you could be, I guess, well, as far as trying to win the Olympia, so off. It's just
so off and be 4th best in the world.
Well, yeah, 5th. Yeah, 5th. Yeah.
I would like so off someday.
I know. Well, talking about age, what the fuck, man? Dexter Jackson had one of the biggest cheers of the night. The crowd absolutely loved him. He got a lot of respect, and you could see he got a lot of respect from all the other guys on the stage too, which was really nice to see. That famous photo now that's going around of Hadi saluting Dexter on stage was right on the big screen when he did that too. And when Hadi saluted Dexter, the whole crowd just fucking erupted and cheered. And Dexter, everyone got goosebumps, man. And then he walked to the middle and he got his 4th place medal and everything. And people were just screaming, Dexter! Like, they loved him, man. He really had a great show. I thought he looked awesome.
He improved at 49. He improved from last year. He got
better, way better.
And I mean, for his age, for any age, the guy's awesome. And he's just such a great guy. Everyone loves him. He's put on a great show for the bodybuilding world for the last 25 years. 20 years as a pro, 20 Olympias.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That's what they announced when they announced that. Like, I don't think anyone was thinking that. Everyone's thinking about all the other numbers that Dexter presents, like the 29 wins and the fact that he's 50. And then, Bob said our next competitor is doing his 20th Olympia. And the whole crowd just sat for a second, like dead silence. Like, what the fuck? Like, everyone knew it was Dexter, but they're like calculating in their heads, how old was I 20 years ago?
Right.
20 years ago, I was 23. Yeah. And Dexter was at the Olympia. And that's just, he's been there my entire bodybuilding life. Dexter's been an Olympia competitor. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dusty?
No, I loved it, and I love that he improved since Tampa. I was at Tampa, and he was good there, but he was better at the Olympia. And I think the biggest thing that I jump on is the fact that the body part everybody knows disappears when you get older is your legs. And his legs were noticeably drier, bigger, harder. I mean, everything about them were better this year than last year. Last year, it looked like his career was on its way out. I mean, truthfully, when he came out, I was like, he's still awesome because you could see.
He seventh? He was seventh last year, right?
Yeah. If you look at the pictures, actually, Brad Rowe posted them because he's crediting his electronic machine for a lot of it.
Oh, right.
Which is great. Brad, make that fucking money, son. I actually use one of those, so they're actually cool. But no, I thought it was awesome to see the body part that goes backwards go forward.
Yeah, there's a funny thing about Dexter. So the people at home probably didn't see it. I don't know what the streaming looked like. I mean, I know it looked awesome, and you guys had an amazing view of everybody, probably better than everyone who's sitting in the fucking arena, except for the first few rows maybe. But there was this really cool thing where every competitor would come out and they'd pose, and you'd be watching them on the big screen, and they looked great. But if they moved across the stage to a certain spot, they were kind of standing right in front of this bright white background. So they sort of became nothing but a silhouette.
Right.
So there was kind of a cool moment where if every guy moved around a bit, you'd see them just as a black silhouette. Mm-hmm. And Dexter's was the craziest.
Right.
That was a cool thing. Everybody kind of walked in front of it at one point, and when Dexter walked in front of it, he kind of stopped for a second, and it just happened to be on the big screen, and I was like, oh, like just these little dips and like little holes in spaces and then roundness, like, just underneath muscle bellies and stuff. Dexter's little, and his knees looked the smallest and his ankles looked the smallest. It was just funny. I just thought, man, Dexter looked crazy in front of that white light. And that's one of the things about his physique that is why he's so hard to compete with. It's those things that are just always going to be there. They're just part of how he's put together, and it just makes him really difficult to stand next to, no matter how big or how good you are. But Mr. Olympia is now Brandon Curry. And what did you guys think of Brandon's physique? I'll start with you, Jose. What do you think of him being Mr. Olympia?
I think it's awesome. Good for him. He's a great dude. He's a family man. He's a father. He's all those things. He's, never a guy that you hear about getting in trouble. He's well spoken. He's a man of the people. So I think it's good in that sense. I think as a person, he's the best. His physique is obviously beautiful. I think he looked better at the Arnold. If you want to judge physiques, mm-hmm. I think he was sharper, more polished, more cleaner lines at the Arnold. He was bigger here, like fuller, rounder. But it is what it is. They only judge what's in front of them. Do I think that would have beaten Phil or Sean? No. No, the condition just wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Head to toe, front to back. I hate criticizing someone who's way better than me, but you're asking questions,
Well, we are in the media business now.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to talk about the majority of bodybuilders, so I get to criticize whoever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I just think, I think like you said earlier, I see what they did. I know what they're doing. I understand it. But that wasn't, I don't know. I keep going back to Hadi. If I want a polished, physique that just looks mind-boggling, from every angle, that's the guy I would have picked. Because I can pick apart Bonac and Brandon a little more than I could pick apart Hardy. Everyone says Hardy's blocky, he's this, he's not aesthetic, he's what are you talking about? The guy, when he hits his poses, his waist comes right in. Now his hips are a little wider than he would want for someone of his height. But when he hits a shot, it's unbelievable, Yeah. Every shot. I don't see him being blocky at all.
No, anyone who calls Hardy blocky hasn't seen him do his quarter turns.
Because we live bodybuilding, we know this stuff. But the people that just are everyday bodybuilding fans, they don't think of that because most of the show is judged during the quarter turns.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Where the guy is pulled out of the lineup, and that's what really stands out is front relax, quarter turn, rear relax. That's how we decide who's who,
Yeah.
And that's why he was always so good.
Yeah.
They might say he's blocky in an ab and thigh or whatever, but not in his quarter turns, and his physique stands out, period.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Dusty? What was your impression of Brandon?
I love Brandon, but I think what sucked to me was across the board, no one walked out and won the Olympia like I thought they would. I was kind of thinking someone was going to show up, and I felt the same way as Jose, that it was Hadi that gave me the most, oh, shit. Brandon, I thought, looked phenomenal. So it became comparing them and thinking, okay, well, this guy has this guy has that, versus Phil a couple years ago when he walked out from behind, or Jay when he won in 2009 and he walked out and took 10 steps and just looked out and was like, yeah, this is fucking done. Everyone knew. It was like, oh, well, I guess we could all go home now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I was hoping would happen. And I really would, truthfully, I was hoping for, I said I thought Brandon was going to win. I was hoping for it for him. I love his look, but I would like to take that beauty and turn it into granite, because then it's like, oh shit. I think that would slam the door. And like Jose said, I think what sucks as a bodybuilding fan is knowing that if Phil jumps in, Phil wins the Olympia. If Roden jumps in, Roden wins the Olympia. If Kai jumps in, Kai won the Olympia. So, I can name 3 guys for sure that if any of them showed up at, not even their best, but at their
85%
expect from them, they win.
Yeah.
And so that's an Olympia that's kind of like, I hope that Brandon makes the changes between now and next year and
moves home and preps with a Aceto.
Yeah.
And blow the doors off it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. That's it, though. It's those mistakes. And I was going to ask you this, Jose, on that mark but do you think that some guys make the mistake of altering their mindset for the Olympia? Because so many guys are better at the Oklahoma show, the Chicago Pro, the Arnold, and then they come to the Olympia, and you're like, why isn't it as good here? I mean, is it their brain, or what do you think?
I'm sure that plays a role in it. And I'm sure that plays a role in why he's in Kuwait. Why Rolly has to be in Kuwait, why Brandon has to be in Kuwait. They both have 4 kids. Right. There's a lot of distractions at home. There's a lot of, extra stress that they don't want to deal with. So now you compound the fact that he's a favorite going into the biggest show in the world, and he's got that stress of having to produce. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that played a role. Where in the Arnold, he was just going to, do the Arnold and spectacular at the Arnold. I was sitting right up front and saw it. He was just very polished.
I wonder if Sean's doing the Olympia, and that takes the pressure kind of off of everyone in the top 4. If minus Hadi, if they all showed up better then. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they're not really expecting to win the Olympia. It was
I'm not going to beat Phil.
Everyone was there to win. You know what I mean? Yeah. Phil was Phil reminds me of you guys will remember this. I'd love it if we could put the clip in. But remember when they used to do the backstage with Triple H?
Yeah.
He's interviewing Dexter, and he goes, "So what do you think?" And Dex goes, "Well, I'll tell you this, man. I'm getting second." And Triple H goes, "Second?" He goes, man, that's fucking Ronnie Coleman. Like, that was the answer. Like,
Yeah.
no one's beating him. Like,
Right.
I think that, though, takes the pressure off. I almost feel like all of them would have been better gunning for Sean versus gunning for winning, you know what I mean, or expecting to win.
Yeah, not having a defending champ, it gives it a bit of a vacuous feel. And, like, you know what you like that, Dusty? I'm going to slip one in every week. It would change how people would just be like, well, fuck. When you're chasing somebody, at least I mean, especially now with how the guidelines are written, Mr. Olympia is the standard, and if he's not going to be in the lineup, it's like, shit, what are they looking for? I just felt that Brandon, I mean, what a physique. Like, the guy's just crazy. Like, if you look at the muscle bellies on the front double and how he sets up his physique and all his poses, for some reason, it really bothered me that he didn't have strided quads. It bothered me. It's like a condition thing, I was like, Mr. Olympia should have strided quads. Like, it just kind of always was that way. I just thought his condition, he just gave up a lot of conditioning, and the physique looked crazy still. And I understand why he won. Like, who had the prettiest physique? Brandon. Who had the best structure? Brandon. Who had the best muscle bellies? Brandon. Who had, like, who was the biggest? Brandon was kind of the biggest, with the, exception of Rolly. But Rolly was just too off.
But he looked bigger.
He looked bigger.
For sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, so he had all the other stuff. So it's like, okay, he has no real weak points. Like, there's no small muscles on Brandon. Like, he doesn't have shitty triceps or anything. Everything's awesome. So I get it. I just like a lot of other people. I just thought that Hadi, I was like, holy shit, is he going to win this fucking show? And when he came out and did his routine at night, man, and the way the crowd reacted, and then he got People's Champ. They're like, People's Champ, and everyone's yelling Hadi. The whole place. And then they announce his name. It's like, he just easily won that. So there was just a vibe in the air, Mm-hmm. And then it was funny because someone said to me, do you think they'll let him win because he doesn't speak English? And I was like, I don't know. And then who was it, the Bikini Pro that won? Or the Bikini Pro that won? Yeah,
Fassini.
Yeah, she didn't speak English, right? So it's kind of funny. I was like, oh, well, hey, we got one champ who doesn't speak English. Why not two? And so, yeah, it's just one of those things. That's the standard now. We'll see what happens next year with the lineup. Do you think Phil's going to be back? Do you think Sean's going to be back? What do you think next year?
Yes.
Both?
Yes. Well, they're not race car drivers or lawyers or doctors. They're going to do what they're best at. They should stop promoting it now.
Well, that's the thing, though, too, if you think about it. Phil got to that point where everyone hates a winner. You know what I mean? Yeah. He was winning, and I love it, too, because everyone was saying, oh, Phil's arrogant. And I'm like, no, but he's right.
Yeah, he was that good.
Are you arrogant if you're right, or are you just stating a fucking fact? So I feel like when he comes back now, people are going to be excited to have him back. They're going to want him to win, not just his fans, but in general. So that's awesome. Sean, when he gets done with his bullshit, and he's coming back, everyone's going to want to see him winning. And I think that then you've got the guys for Brandon that are very similar. They want to see him compete against the best of the best that stayed home this year. And man, if all three of them showed up, we could finally have an Olympia like the old days where you're looking going, wow.
Can you imagine if next year you have Sean, Phil, Dexter, Rolly, all in their 40s and 50 in the top 5 of the Olympia? And then Cedric sneaks in there.
Yeah. That would be something else. Now let's talk about, we kind of touched on Rolly. And that was very good insight, Jose, because I didn't really know that. I didn't hear that rumor. Let's talk about the other biggest disappointment of the weekend, which was Derek Lunsford not smoking the 212. As a 212 veteran and someone who probably knows that division better than anybody on the planet, what did you see and what do you think?
I saw exactly what I saw last year. Is a kid with beautiful structure, and everyone in their mind is like dreaming up this amazing thing, which he is amazing. His structure's the best. he's so young that the muscle is like veal. It looks soft. It looks like baby muscle, you know? Mm-hmm. From behind, sure, his rear double's pretty crazy. His glutes and hams are tight, strided. But everything else is soft. And, you know, you can only get so far with that. And he's gotten second in the world 2 years in a row, but I knew it was going to happen. I've been saying it all along, especially where he's got to cut down to make the weight and you know, his body is just, it's going to be a couple of years. When this kid's 30, forget about it. You know, when he's in his early 30s, 32, 33, if he keeps his head straight, he'll be a top open Olympia guy. You know, but right now he's too young. He's 26 years old. Like, the muscle is not matured to the point where he can stand next to Kamal and just beat him on structure alone.
Right.
You know, Kamal's a great poser too. You know, he knows how to get every ounce of what he's got. So he was up against a tough thing, and I'm sad for Derek, but very happy they did the right thing.
Yeah. Now, do you think that, like, the pictures we see on Instagram, and, you know, obviously, you know, I don't know if Derek filters his pictures or not. You know, let's say he doesn't, and that's just him in the gym hitting a front double, looking crazy. Do you think that some of the damage to his physique is just making weight? Do you think that that's just part of the problem? Does he like 230 in the gym in those shots that we see?
No.
And that like what do you think? Do you think the weight cut has an effect on him?
I think it does a little bit. But I think most of it is what I just said. He's still too young to have that real mature look. That's not in his genetic makeup. Some people, you know, Branch was grainy at 9 years old. This kid, it's going to take some time, you know. It's his genetics. He was blessed with structure and muscle shape and all the bells and whistles, but he's not blessed with that granite hard look that only comes with years in the gym.
Yeah.
And, you know, he will get there, but he's not there yet. You know, and he almost won the Olympia on structure alone.
Yeah.
Which it shouldn't be that way. And I'm glad they did the right thing.
Now, what about Kamal winning at 47 years old? Obviously, a great matchup with him and Aceto working together there. What do you know about that situation?
I just know he's a hard worker, long time. People are forgetting or don't know. He's won everything. He's won everything all over the world. World championships, you know, European championships, Asian championships. He's won them all. He's beaten everyone. He's beaten Hadi. He's beaten Eduardo Correa. He's beaten Samuel Haddad. He's beaten every single one of these unbelievable competitors. And then he took some time off. He was with other federations. He couldn't get a pro card. And he finally made his way back. He was actually retired for a little bit. And he had a long history with Aceto. They met, I don't know, 20 years ago?
Yeah, back in the 90s, late 90s, in the Middle East.
Right. And, you know, he has fought his way back. He didn't have any severe injuries. He didn't, you know, abuse himself, obviously, because that is a clean, healthy, fresh-looking body at 47 years old.
Now, I also read that he has retired. Is that true? Did he win and retire?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't see why he would. He looks fresh as can be.
Right. I thought I saw that on a post, but yeah, I'd love to see him again. What about Sean Clarita in third? Me and Dusty were talking about how we love Clarita. We wanted to see him do as well as possible.
Dude, I love him. I think you could have made an argument for him to win. You know, he's like the purest example of a shape-conditioned muscle freak, you know? Like the hardcore fans will vote for him all day long. And I had no problem if he won, but I really think he should have been second. I really do. At the least. It's the same thing with like Hadi. Like, I wouldn't have had a problem if he won, but at very least I would have had him in second.
You know, I was joking with Dusty when guys filter pictures up and their face turns into concrete. You know, they put all the filters on there.
Yeah.
That's just how Sean looked on stage.
He really
two people like him and another guy who had the purest example of like classic, fresh, clean condition was Patrick Moore. The two of them probably stood out to me the most as far as, you know, just clean condition.
Yeah,
From every angle.
Yeah, he was another fan favorite. Patrick Moore, the fans really loved Patrick Moore. He got a lot of love this weekend. I know his placing was a little bit back of the pack, but so I thought the highlight of the whole weekend, maybe because I know the kid and I remember when he was just a junior, but watching Bumstead win the Classic, the whole crowd, man, that guy's got, everyone loves that guy. And that was a great moment. I thought he should have won the first Classic Olympia. I had him first over Breon 2 years ago. Last year he was, sick and wasn't at his best, but this year I thought it was an easy win. What did you guys think?
Go ahead, Dusty.
Well, I thought that, first off, I had said that I just didn't think anyone really had enough because Breon's pictures leading into the Olympia, he had improved drastically already. And I know Bumstead looked great, and he hadn't been sharing any pictures that were current. He kept putting that up. Like, he put up pictures like, oh, he looks nuts. But he kept saying, sorry, these aren't current. I saw pictures, or when I saw prejudging, I texted you, and I sent that picture, and I was like, holy shit. I think he has enough to win. And I was actually going to pipe up earlier and say that right there with Clarita was Bumstead on conditioning. I mean, he was gnarly, and when I think of Classic, I think of him, and not just because of the mustache, but the whole look. He just is wacky, the structure is phenomenal, the waistline, as much as it's not what makes the whole sport. When he does the ab and thigh, then steps his feet out wide and does the vacuum, it looks like his stomach's going to touch the wall behind him. So he was just nuts. The only thing he gives up is the rear shots. But that's just doesn't matter.
Well, in Classic Bodybuilding, it's one shot.
Right, yeah, true. One.
So he gives up one shot, Yeah. He didn't win the back double, and that was it. And I thought every other post...
won by the guy in third, so who cares?
Yeah. What about you, Jose? I mean, what was your take on Classic?
I agree with Dusty in the sense that when you think of Classic physique, that's what you think of.
Yeah.
Breon is unbelievable, and I do think he did improve significantly, only to come in second, which is crazy to think. But Bumstead is similar in a way to Lunsford in that his structure has been ready for a while, but he's so young that muscle wasn't really matured enough to beat a Breon Emsley. Where right. Now, he did get hard enough, and he's still got a ways to improve that physique. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how close he is to the cutoff. I wouldn't imagine he's that close.
I thought he was barely making the cutoff, to be honest. Yeah.
So he's what, 6'1"?
Yeah, he's about my height. 6 foot 6'1". I'd have to get the numbers. I don't know what he weighed in. I mean, he used to do bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
That's how he turned pro, as a heavyweight bodybuilder. So I'm not sure how much room on the scale is left. I mean, I would love to see Bumstead just gas up to 260 and do the open. I mean, that's what I want to see.
That's what bodybuilding.
Man, well, he already squats 5 plates. All he's got to do is just turn up the heat. I mean, he already moves big weights. He already, like, everything to put size on is already there. He's got the power. He's healthy. He's got the strength. He can squat heavy. He can fucking press heavy. If he just ate up.
Well, but then he can't wear those pants anymore. He looks good in them jeans.
I know that he can't wear the tight jeans anymore, and I think he gets paid to wear the tight jeans. So maybe the money is in taking 5 months off.
Yeah, I think he stays where he is. Considering he has some sort of kidney disease or something.
Yeah, he's got like a genetic autoimmune thing that I think like all autoimmune stuff, it can just kind of flare up on you whenever randomly,
right?
If you're not careful with it. So I'm sure he's just doing like ultra healthy stuff with, there's a lot of things you can take. Like, probably got Dante on the phone and said, hey, what can I take to help my immune system and all that stuff. So I mean, he seems to be staying very healthy. He looks amazing. I mean, that Bumstead, a guy like that with the genetics that he has and the structure, that what he does to get ready for his show is very, very tame, and he could probably do that for 20 years and be very healthy. So, I mean, that's not a guy that's doing anything crazy. I mean, especially with, the support network he has, I'm sure everyone watches out for him really closely. But he's just a great guy. As far as Breon goes, I don't know. There's just something like the way Chris looks in his front lat spread with I just love bodybuilders with like crazy V taper. That's why I sort of like not a huge fan of Bonnack's structure. And, so guys that don't have crazy V taper, I'm like, and you put Bumstead on stage next to those guys, and I just I can't stop looking at him. And Breon's great, but to me Breon kind of just looks like a smaller bodybuilder next to Bumstead. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a pretty easy win. That George guy looked great. I think George the Bull, he muscled his way into the top 3. Like, he's not as pretty as like that Keon guy or any of those other dudes. He sort of has the least pretty. He has the least classic look of the top 3, but he's there because of the muscle quality and the thickness he carries. So I sort of said he was like the Branch Warren Classic, which is a compliment, by the way. So that was my take on that division. But overall, I thought the weekend was good. Being a judge would have been interesting. Holy shit. I'm sure that I'd love to hear what some of their conversations were like after a dinner.
I just love that I didn't feel like there wasn't a single clash where I was like, oh, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, truthfully, top 5, I was like, I'm good with that. I mean, which is nice because there's been a few. I mean, it's bodybuilding, it's subjective. So every show I've ever been to, there's 1 or 2 I'd switch. You know what I mean?
There was a few. David Henry coming in outside the top 10 kind of blew my mind.
I didn't. It's funny because of the way it was online, they didn't show as much of those guys. So I saw like a couple pictures of him, and that was it. So I didn't really get to the feel of why he was so far out.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't.
What is Jose? I had some questions here. I'm sure Dusty knows you well enough. He probably didn't have to write a list. Yeah, but I got a couple questions for you. Since we're doing an Olympia wrap-up show, I wanted to ask you, tell us about your first Olympia.
My first Olympia, 2009, I showed up with nothing, a pair of trunks and some tan. And I
love how this starts, by the way. This is the perfect start.
I went to meet the Olympians and had nothing but myself. And I just stood there all night, taking pictures, shaking hands, and introducing myself to people or whatever. And I didn't realize you were supposed to bring merchandise or 8x10s or anything like that. So I had a big table empty. I just stood there. And, I had just really started coming into my own as far as a bodybuilder. Like, I was a great amateur natural bodybuilder, and that was the first year I started my metamorphosis. And the first show of the year I was 184, and at that Olympia 4 months later I was 200 pounds, and I went from placing 7th in New York to 6th in the Olympia. I was in the first call out, and man, that was quite an experience. It let me know that I belong. I was in the first call out with Kevin English, David Henry, Eduardo Correa, Mark Dugdale, Fletch Lewis, and me.
Holy shit. And you were all 202.
All 202.
Yeah. Right. Old school.
All peeled. Crazy.
So that must, when you're hearing those names at first call out and then you hear yours, what goes through your head?
I made it. I'm here. I must look better than I think, I looked at those guys and I was like, oh my God. And I wasn't quite there yet, but I was definitely knocking on the door. And it gave me confidence moving forward. And the next year, 2010, I think I came in 4th. And then it just steadily got better and better from there. I think I placed 4th 3 times, 3rd 3 times, 2nd once, 5th once, 6th once.
Right.
Yeah. But never higher than 6 out of 10.
Now, of all those Olympias, which one do you think was your best look?
Oh, it's without doubt 2015. Without question. I was second to Flex Lewis. Arguably could have beaten him. That was the year my body, I peaked. I won the Arnold. I was second at the Olympia. I won in Prague. It was really just, that was it. After that, I started having knee surgeries and just injuries that just caught up to me. That's why I said I know what role he's going through.
Right. Yeah.
That guy's a beast.
I do too.
He looks the way he does for a reason, and it's because he can't train the way he wants.
Right.
That's what it is. The guy doesn't go from looking like a beast to that. And that's what started happening to me after 2015.
Right. Now, was it just one of those years, and did you know it at the time? You're like, oh, I can do anything right now. You must have been working with Aceto at the time, and he must have seen that. You could just do anything. There's as many shows as you want. You could peak for every single one of them.
Well, I didn't think that way. I was used to competing a lot anyway.
Right.
So I loved to compete, and I wanted to compete a lot. But it was more of I would take my pictures in the morning, and I would look at them, and I was never impressed with myself. And that year, I was like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, that's like what I would want to look like if I was a little kid looking at a bodybuilder,
Yeah. There, when you catch your own, because bodybuilders, I think most people don't realize, all we do when we see a picture is what's wrong.
Exactly.
Whatever good, you don't want to talk about it. But I don't have this.
That's funny.
That moment where you look good, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. And looking back on my photos now, there's a handful of pictures. There's only a handful where I look and I'm like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I look pretty fucking good there.
The thing is,
probably the only year.
He's leaving out though is he hit his stride right after he started hanging out with me, and that's just an obvious connection.
That it was. It's true. He taught me how to eat, how to enjoy the process. Have some fun, make it fun.
Oh God!
What was traveling when you guys were the I-Force duo? What was that like on the road, Jose? I mean, I know Dusty. I know what it's like to travel with Dusty, but what did you think?
We would just all day long. We'd have to spend 8-9 hours behind a desk, behind a booth in Germany for 4 days in a row.
Yeah.
So we were stir crazy. We just stopped making fun of everyone, but they couldn't speak English, so they didn't know. We would be putting on shows and just having so much fun with people, and not being disrespectful, but it was just hilarious. We did that in Australia and Germany, and
they don't speak English in Australia either.
No, they speak a weird English. Yeah, same thing in England. Some of them speak a version of English.
Yes.
When we were with Dusty, no matter what, we trained.
Oh yeah.
We'd go out to eat. I'd have a dozen beers. He'd still get up the next day, make me go train with him. I'm like, all right.
It was very hard to convince Jose we're going to train. Okay.
One thing we were talking about on the show a few episodes ago was your name came up. We were talking about people who maybe shouldn't take pro cards.
Yeah.
And maybe it'd be a good idea if they passed on this pro card or that pro card. You were sort of the most famous example of that. So can you clear up exactly what you did with pro cards?
Back then, we didn't have all these options we have today of classic physique and men's physique and 212, all this stuff. Back then, had I taken it my first year, I would have been competing with Ronnie and Jay and, exactly, all those guys. And I was 154 pounds. Back then, maybe I would have taken the card at 25 years old and done classic physique. Right. I don't know. I doubt it because my heart is, I wanted to be a bodybuilder, So that was as simple as that. There wasn't any plan. I didn't have this plan to go win 8 national titles. I just didn't have the option of going pro because it wasn't even in my sights. So I just slowly went up, won the lightweights, won the welterweights, won the middleweights, and then finally they developed the 202 or 210, which moved to 202, and then eventually 212.
For me, taking 4 years to turn pro put me on the map because every time I'd come into a show, my name was in the mix. Like, hey, well, Dusty's doing it, so he could win. Just had won the first year somehow, over, possibly career over, and and the industry hadn't changed into what it is now with social media and whatnot. Probably would have been long gone from bodybuilding because as much as I love to bodybuilding to me is in the gym and at home. And running around getting my ass kicked at pro shows for 9 years wouldn't have been fun, so I probably just would have stopped.
Yeah.
You know?
So how many pro cards did you actually not take?
4. It was I won 4.
But according to the rules now, you won 8.
I would have had 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because nobody seems to think of that option now. But I mean, the only other option was, you remember like Flavio Baccanini?
Yeah.
Like how his whole thing was he was just the smallest guy up there. He stood next to Lou.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy had a crazy physique.
I competed to win. I wanted to win. I didn't compete just to be one of the competitors,
Yeah.
And that's why it was an easy decision to like retire when I did, because I could no longer win. I couldn't train the way I needed to win. So it wasn't like this hard drawn out thing. I just couldn't do it. My body made that decision for me. So I just went.
It was hard for me, in case you're wondering.
Look at that face. He's got talent. He can hold that face for that long. Something I wanted to say, what you were saying earlier, Dusty. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, when you'd go into a national show, you knew every guy in the top 5. You knew their names because they had developed and built a name for themselves through the years. And now I can't tell you, maybe a few guys who I know because I see them on social media, but back then, some of the national competitors were already like stars, very popular, sponsored guys, like well-known in the magazines, all that. And that's gone because now the minute someone's even remotely good, they get a pro card, and they're gone.
Yeah.
They put it on their Instagram and, they're a third-tier pro at one of these shows. And then now you have to do all your hard work as a pro instead of when you were an amateur.
Right.
What would be, here's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. You've seen everything. You've traveled the world with the best of the best. You've been at the Olympia multiple times. What are some of the things that you think would be like the best guys at their best? Is there anything that you think of and you're like, man, when I saw that, fuck.
You know who stood out to me, honestly, as one of the biggest? He wasn't even a pro yet, was Luke Sandow. And Dusty, you introduced me to him at the, what is that? The Body Power.
Yeah.
He's not tall. He's only like 5'8", but he was so wide. He had to be 280 at 5'8", and he wasn't fat. But he was so big he looked fat, He stood out. He was like, I couldn't make sense of the guy. Like, is this a fat powerlifter or what is this guy?
Yeah.
No, he's the real deal. And then he eventually turned pro, and he's one of the biggest guys out there right now.
Yeah, I just thought he had, obviously, I think he got hit with the Olympia nerves. Everyone saw the photos of him at the Arnold and how he was coming into the show. And I just think Vegas got the best of Luke this time. But I honestly, I was hoping he'd be like top 5, top 3. I had big hopes for him, and I still do. I think that was just his initiation. He's going to be very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that because I just said that last show, exact same. I think he even said it was Body Power I met him at.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's got it all.
Yeah.
So what about at the Olympia?
At the Olympia. Probably maybe Jay in 2009. And a close second, Branch in 2009.
Right.
Crazy. So that was back when I didn't even go to the show. I just stay in my hotel room. I was staying at the Trump. In 09 and 10, I stayed at the Trump, and I would watch it on my computer, watch the prejudging Friday night. And when Branch came out, I was like hitting the computer, like there's something wrong. Like it didn't make sense. And then like 5 people after him didn't look good. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, no, that's really what he looked like. Yeah. And then Jay came out, and it was the same thing. I'm like, those two were the clearest, most creepy condition guys in the show.
I remember that exact thing because Branch was the first guy out.
Yep.
And then I remember you do the count. You're like, nope. The other guys start coming out. Nope. You get 8 or 9 deep. You're like, fuck, Branch is kicking everyone's ass. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. You get 13 people deep, and there's not a single person that's going to beat Branch Warren. You're like, holy shit. And then I think it was a little, then they finally bring Jay out at some point, and you're like, oh, okay, this is nuts.
Yeah.
This is going to be a battle. But it's just it's that funny, when you see a guy come out and then every guy after him is like a letdown.
Yeah.
It's a funny phenomenon when you can have that effect at the Olympia.
Yeah. It's funny though because people don't realize that if Jay wasn't Jay that year, the talk would have been Branch, but because Jay was so off the charts and coming back from losing, what Branch actually did kind of got overshadowed, because I don't think a lot of people that weren't there realized how crazy he was because it was so dramatic. I mean, you guys both remember, like I said earlier, like Jay kind of flipped everyone off when he walked out, just by how he looked, because everyone, you remember leading into the show, they're like 4th, 5th, his career's kind of, and I remember he took like, I don't know, 10, 15 steps and just stopped, and the crowd lost it, because they knew, they were like, okay, this is done. He hadn't even hit a shot yet, just like you said, he didn't even hit a quarter turn, he just stopped. It was like, shit, this Jay would have been battling the Ronnie, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a crazy year. That's funny that you bring that up, because that's one of the best Olympias ever.
I feel like, this is a side subject, but I'm always curious. Like, I feel like as good as everyone is, if you think of the best Ronnie, the best Ronnie beats the best Jay. But I think that the best Jay beats the best Phil. And it kind of like this, like we're waiting for someone to start going up again, because those guys were so good.
Special appearance.
And you off.
Number 2.
Special appearance by McCullough.
Happy birthday.
Is going to be on something?
Yes.
Your birthday on.
I thought you guys were just having like a bromance phone call.
Yeah.
That's gold right there. We're just waiting for the next level.
Yes.
Is he going to get laid for those flowers? Never.
Yeah, he better get laid for the flowers.
To answer them.
I think he should get like.
At the supermarket, though.
He should get that first month dating
sex. Laid for supermarket? Wait, what? You guys are into some freaky shit.
Yeah.
In the freezer aisle, buddy. In the freezer aisle.
So 2009 Olympia.
Yeah, that's one of the craziest ones ever, and it's funny that that's the one that you mentioned when I asked you that question.
Well, it was.
It was an awesome show, and I've got some questions for Jose. I've got a few questions that people fired me off. I don't know how many Dusty has. I'll fire a couple here. We got some non-Olympia questions. If we're gonna have a guy like Jose on, we got to ask him some stuff.
All right.
So. When Jose was carrying his most amount of muscle, what was he doing in the gym?
Everything was light. Everything, it was foolishly light. Like things that I would struggle at other times, I'd be doing 15 reps with it. I would bench 405 for 12 reps, 10 reps on incline, doing 315 for 30 reps on a bench press, Just everything was light. Shoulder pressing 315 for 12, 15 reps. Squatting 500 for 15, easy. All it was just light. Like I never felt the heavy weight that entire year. In 2013, I hit my stride where I couldn't pile enough weight on my back, and I would still get 15 reps with it. You know,
Your body just wanted to be strong.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy though is it was effortless because obviously I was training with Jose back then, and I mean, strength has always been kind of what I'm known for. And I remember training with Jose, and I'm like, it's like when you're a kid. Like when I played hockey, if you check the guy that was 18 and 210 versus hitting the guy that was 40 and 210, you're like, oh, that's some fucking man strength right there. Like I remember training with him, I'm like, fuck, man, he's a lot stronger than me. Like,
really, yeah.
I was a lot stronger than people thought.
You know, you could. I felt like I could push, but I'm like, I remember we did a. I don't know if you remember this, but we did a video shoot for MD, and none of the weights were marked. So we're doing shoulder presses, and Jose kicks him up and does a set, and I literally told him, I'm like, my left shoulder, I won't be able to throw this up. I squeak out like 6. And he helps me get a couple, and I remember thinking, like, damn, that I posted it, and I said, man, it blew my mind because those 120s were heavy for me. And a guy posted on there, he goes, those were 160s, and I'm like, shit, I've never done that before. And Jose blasts out like 10 or 12 with them, and I was like, what the fuck was that? I didn't get him on my shoulders, and he's repping them.
What was that, Jose?
It was this old, like you said, a dungeon of a gym. They weren't labeled or anything.
Yeah.
They were all on the floor, and you kind of had to search around to find a matching pair. And we just grabbed 2 of the biggest ones we could find, and it felt like we could do them. You know, that was
advertised by making the 160s look light, so I was like, I can do that. Almost got buried by the things.
Man. So that's funny that you say, I mean, there's another connection, you know, you were at your biggest when you were moving the most weight.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people.
I was able to grow to my biggest when I was moving the most weight. And the most important thing, it was when I felt the healthiest, like not a lot of pain, not a lot of nagging injuries, you know, when you hit that stride and you can't wait to wake up the next morning and look at yourself and take your pictures and go eat your meal, do your car, you know, you're so eager and hungry to live this lifestyle. And then, you know, fast forward a few years later, it was painful getting out of bed. It was like, fuck, I don't really think I'm going to look good in these pictures. 2015, we did all one shot. Front double, bang. Rear double, bang. Never took it over again. I'd look at it and be like, wow, send that off.
I remember Chris used to
Ollie would respond, wacky.
I used to love when he'd send them to me. And I was like, man, he's changing by the day. He's like, no, I'm going to have him send some more in a couple hours. Trust me, they'll be better.
Yeah. Every day I'd send a few. He'd say that to me. I want to see him under the light in your living room. And then I want to see him under the light in the gym. I want to see them when you get a pump. I'm going to see you after you do cardio. And it was, you know, I could do an hour on the step mill and grow.
I remember one year, Chris, I think it was 2015. Chris sent me a photo of you, and he's like, Jose finally shaved, and it was, I think you'd clippered down everything.
Yeah.
And he sent me one of your photos. He goes, Jose finally shaved. This show's over. And it was like, I don't know what it was like. I think you shaved like 6 weeks out or something. I don't know how you used to do it, but it was pretty funny. I just had to laugh. And I think that was the Arnold. So, you know, you won that year. I remember I saw you in Toronto one year, and you were like, you were joking. You were wearing a tank top. You're having a few tequilas, and I said, didn't you start your prep yet? And you said, no, I start when I get home. It's my last tequila, and then on Monday I'm going to shave up. And you rubbed your furry arm, and you were like, it's prep time.
Yeah, shaving that's when I mean business.
Now, of all the places you trained, what would you say was your home gym for most of your career? Do you have one that you spent a great deal of time in?
Yeah, probably the best one was one in Revere, Mass. It's called Greater Boston Fitness. It's old school hardcore, you know, with all the old equipment that somehow still seems to work. And it has it has 200-pound dumbbells. They catered to me in anything I wanted, and that's where I spent those years from 2012 2012 or 2013 to present day. And, it's the only place with that atmosphere where I'm welcome with my entourage and tank tops and camera crew, filming videos. And because every other gym locally is corporate, Yeah. I walk in there with a tank top and two guys filming me. They don't allow that. With us, with bodybuilding, it's no longer you sit in a dungeon in like Dorian and then just show up on game day. You have to have, Road to the Olympia series. You got to promote yourself on social media for your sponsors and whatnot. So I had to have a place where I could do that. And they understood that I was helping them tremendously because when anyone came to Boston, that's a place to train.
Yeah.
And, when I started there, they had like 600 members. Now they have 6,500. And that's not due to me, but I helped foster that atmosphere.
You certainly didn't hold the place back.
Right. When Dana Lane Bailey came to town, she came there and trained with me. Dana Lane Bailey, DBL, DLB.
There you go.
Trained there with me. Evan Senapani trained there with me. David Henry, Jay. The list of pros I brought in there is huge, and so it was huge. They treated me awesome, and that's the atmosphere I love. I don't like corporate anything. I like home owned, blood, sweat, and tears, and that's how that place is. It was huge.
I got one question. I'll hand you over to Dusty for a few. How do you think this from a viewer? How do you think Flex Lewis is going to do in the Open?
He could win. He could. He's going to do unbelievable. I won't put a number, but if he was here this year, he probably would have won. If he was at his best, Flex is still very young. He's very young. Flex is.
Was he early 30s?
He's a year older than I was my first year as a pro.
That's a hell of a way to point it out.
For 12 years, he's been a pro. So he's still a baby. He's going to be unbelievable. He will more than likely win the Olympia, whether it's next year or 2 years or 3 years. As long as he wants to compete, he's going to be one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah.
I remember that from last year, and one of the few people in the industry that I don't love at all was riling up that Flex was threatened by Derek Lunsford. When they walked out next to each other at the Olympia, I shot the kid a text. I said, I don't think he's scared of shit. Because it was, and that's not a shot against Derek. It's just that's what the people created, and he demoralized him. Like, it wasn't close.
No.
And I think that kind of put into perspective for people that somehow didn't know who Flex is. Like, here's your guy that you're so worried that he thinks he's worried about it, like he embarrassed him.
Yeah.
And he will do the same at the next level. He's going to beat a lot of people very quickly that they're going to blow people's minds,
Yeah, so this will put it in perspective. Since Hardy's been a pro, before this Olympia, only 3 people have beaten Hardy as in his pro career. And that was Flex Lewis, Rolly in Hardy's very first pro show, and Cedric. Flex and Hardy, I guarantee you, will be top 3, top 4 next year in the Olympia.
Yep.
No question.
Yeah. Especially because nobody except for like a select few have ever seen Flex Lewis without having, like, how he gets in amazing condition and then he sucks down to 212?
Yeah.
Like, what does he look like at 230?
We'll find out next year.
He's going to have the governor off all year, too, because you spend the whole offseason trying not to get much bigger.
I've eaten with Flex and he's like, I'll have a 6-ounce steak. And I go, you just get the 6 ounce? He goes, Neil never lets me eat more than 6 ounces.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess you have to fucking stay 212 forever.
Think about that shit.
Like, he gets to have a 12-ounce steak now.
You see him walk around
for years.
His face is noticeably bigger than normal right now.
Oh, I saw that at the Olympia. Actually, I sent it to a friend because she calls him Sexy Flexy, and I'm like, Sexy Flexy's starting to look like Dusty right now, so careful.
He's gonna have to grow the beard down on the neck a little bit.
That's the secret of the approach right there.
Yeah,
that's funny. There, you fire a few off, Dusty.
All right, Jose, we're gonna get into fun shit now because I want to get some real stories out.
Remember, my wife's here.
Oh, that's cool. There'll be we're
Dusty already told me a few of those, anyways.
No, so one of my favorite things that I think people don't realize when it comes to, and first let me add, you've always been a bodybuilder. Like when it's time to click in to prep, you do, and that is one of the things that makes you who you are. But the other is look at your brother, look at you. There is a genetic thing you can't argue. And in 1 year, you have to tell me when it was, but you told me that the night before USA's in Vegas. Go ahead.
It was 2007. I went to compete in the USA, and I went with a crew of my friends, and I was a middleweight. And I was ended up going to weigh-ins, made weight, and Tamer was at weigh-ins with me, and he's like, "Well, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "I'm competing." He's like, "You already won your pro card a bunch of times." I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't accept it. I wanted to move up to middleweights." So after weigh-ins, I was starving. We went out for a steak, started having a couple Patrons. We ended up out all night ripping it up. I ended up winning as a middleweight USA champ. I ripped it up all night.
I just remember because you told me, I can't remember who it was, but someone had walked up to you backstage, and you were like, and they're like, "Oh, are you cramping?" You said, "No, I'm fucking hungover." And that guy's looking at you going, "And this asshole's about to beat me."
Yeah, well, it was just a good diuretic back then. I didn't know much about diuretics, but I knew if I had a couple Patrons, I'd draw out nicely.
It was all part of the master plan.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had a massive headache, but I was dry as can be.
See, and these are the stories you're not getting on another show because nobody knows this shit.
I've only told that a few times.
That's funny. That's funny.
We had dinner. Dinner went for about 3 hours. And then we stayed at the bar, and I figured I had plenty of time to sleep and rest up. I did.
Sober up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one always kills me because obviously, Ron, you've got guys like me and you on the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, I'm counting rice grains to make sure that I'm doing exactly what Chris has me doing because me at 150%, I still need the other guy at 85 to beat him.
Right.
So.
I certainly never did it again, though.
Right. You learn as a middleweight, you got away with it.
Right.
Like that's such an easy feat. Jose and I did a 3-week tour in Australia 1 year.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
So we had the longest trip, and we finally got a day off on like day 18, and we went down to the Opera House in Sydney, and Jose introduced me to mojitos that day, which I had never had. And I remember because we definitely had a lot of them. Yes, and we were walking to go get some dinner, and we were being loud, I remember. And there was these two cops down at the end, and they're like, "Hey!" And they yelled, and I'm like, "Oh, shit." I'm thinking, I don't know what we've done, but we're definitely hammered. And the guy goes, "Jose, Dusty, we need to get a picture with you." I'm like, "Oh, shit." Smack over. I'm glad that picture never got tagged because I can only imagine what we looked like in that shot.
That was a beautiful time, though. We were doing some day drinking right on the Sydney Harbor, right by the Opera House. There's all outdoor bars and stuff. So we probably started, it was still real sunny out, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something. And it went all downhill from there.
Now, I think I may have heard a story about Jose pissing off the dock.
That was there.
Oh, that was easy. That's allowed, isn't it?
That was that night. But the best part was the next day I was like, I go, Jose, I cannot believe you pissed off the Sydney Opera House talking. He goes, I did.
That's funny. No, everyone knew that you two guys were fun to be around when you were on the road, which is one of the reasons why, you know, when you guys were split up by a business there, and I was working at Mutant at the time. I thought, oh shit, maybe I can wrangle a deal to get both these guys. So I remember talking to both you guys at the time, and just like, you know, hoping, geez, I wonder what you know the company would let me get away with here. We wound up snagging one of you, but you know, we
for the top with some big dollars there on the
Then I think Jay Cutler picked you up, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it turned out okay for you guys, but you know, we knew you were both fun on the road, and that's one of the reasons why Dusty was a good addition to the team. Was that, well, if he can hang with Jose, he'll be okay.
He was more than okay.
You know,
good.
It's good times. So what's the plan now, Jose? You know, you've officially retired from competing. You know, you're back in the gym after hip replacement.
Yeah.
What's the update on the hips, and how are you doing? And you know, what do you go to the gym? What's in your head when you go to the gym now?
So I feel great. My hip is unbelievable. Like, I can hack squats with 5 plates, and you know, I'm very strong. It came back super. Unfortunately, my right hip is going to need surgery again. Not again, but I'll have to do the right hip. Not soon, because it's not really in pain. Like the other one, I was limping around for 2 years. It was agony. So I'm just going to ride it till the wheels fall off and train and get back into it. I've been amazed at the progress that I've made, and I want to see what I'm capable of. So I'm going to, you know, get on a plan and start, you know, training as if I had a goal of competing. That's the only way I'll be able to see if my body really responds.
Right.
And if for some reason I grow then, you know, I might consider something.
Right. But that was the injury that was holding you back.
Oh, 100%. Everything else, I would have been fine.
I remember in Japan, you could barely walk. Like when you guys did that video,
yeah.
I could see it in your face, the pain.
It was really bad.
Didn't you have a walking stick for a little while too?
That was after
the surgery.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, more than likely will never compete again, but I want to. It's the only way I'll get back in shape is if I set a goal and focus solely on that. Because if I do it just for, you know, to be healthy, I'll be drinking beers every night. I want, you know, I'll have no reason to diet. I'll have no reason to get up and do cardio early in the morning. I just won't have the drive if I'm not going to be in trunks at some point.
I've never understood how people can do that. Like, I'm just going to get in shape because it's summer. I'm like, I don't give a shit if it's summer.
Right. I'm not a, what's the word, vain person. I don't really care if I'm fat. Like, it doesn't change my life, you know?
Right.
But I would like to be in shape, like really good shape again.
Yeah.
You know, before I am too old to be able to do it.
How old are you now?
44.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're only a year older than me. And you know, after like you said, this Olympia, seeing what we saw with Dexter and stuff like that, it's
Kamal made me want to train.
Yeah.
That was pound for pound a lot bigger than Kamal. I don't have his pretty structure, you know, but I'm like, man, if I could nail it one more time and get on stage with that kid.
That's wacky. What about the business? Share some of that for us.
So I'm opening a gym, hopefully within the next 7 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's under construction right now. They're working on the floors. They're putting in locker rooms. It's an empty shell of a building, 40,000 square feet. We're going to have a big 15 by 30 yard area of turf for like functional training. We're going to have a restaurant in there, a few different retail spots for like massage therapy, physical therapy, a pro shop, a juice bar. It's a massive building. And it was in the works for a while, and I couldn't really talk about it too much because if something fell through, or, I didn't want to start promoting it too much. But now it's a real deal. We're working on it every day.
What's the plan going to be with the facility? Like, do you have a name for it yet?
Yeah. So we got into, it's not a franchise, but we got like copyright. We had to pay a copyright cost for Metroflex.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're doing a licensing deal.
Yeah. It's a Metroflex Boston. And it's about 15 minutes north of the city in a town called Malden.
That's awesome. The funny thing, Jose, you're getting me excited because I've always wanted to bring my show Mutant on a Mission to Boston because I've always wanted to go to Boston, and I've never had a reason to go to Boston. And I grew up a Boston Bruins fan, and I always wanted to go to a Bruins game, and so now I got a reason to come. I got to come and see
it all.
I didn't.
I'd love to
tell Ron about this before the show, so I thought I'd surprise him on the spot with it.
Yeah, this is awesome news.
It's so long ago, but I just kind of up until I texted you the other day. I'm like, so do I get to bring this up or not?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
yeah, that's awesome.
It. Come on out. We'll get tickets to the Bruins.
Just as long as you take me to a neighborhood where I get to hear a lot of Southie chicks talk.
Oh, I will for sure. We love that.
And you want your wife to yell at me a little bit.
Oh, that'll happen.
She'll throw a bunch of F-bombs at you.
There you go.
I'll keep you posted.
No, definitely do, man. We want to thank you for coming on the show. We've had you for like almost an hour and a half, man. It's it'll be our longest interview ever.
Yeah, you have to chop it up.
No, we'll keep the whole thing. It's all worth it. But we're really happy to have you on. Obviously, you're a true veteran and an Arnold champion, and so thanks for coming on, man. Rusty, any final words for your fucking partner in crime here?
See you soon. Everybody's been jamming me to get up. I literally had a guy message me yesterday with, when are we going to see something with you and Jose? And my answer was, we'll talk about it on the show tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that your hip is better. I saw your video where you're hack squatting 5 plates there and deadlifting heavy, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's working. Thank you.
We're gonna
good for you, man.
For the new gym and get some content that everybody's been asking for. So I might try to jam Ron into coming up for a Mutant on the Mission around the same time.
That'd be huge.
Okay.
Thank you a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Love you, Jose. Appreciate it, brother.
See you guys.
Okay. Michaela. See you, bro.
Adios.
There it is, Dusty, the Jose Raymond interview.
Perfect. I think it was good. That we obviously had a huge script that we followed. We were right in there. I didn't surprise any randomness of drinking or gyms or anything like that.
No, it was good. It was funny because as soon as he started talking about the Olympia, I thought, oh, he saw exactly the same show I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same show that everyone saw. And the point I was trying to make with when we first started was about saying how the people who stayed at home actually probably saw the show better.
Right.
That's, I think, where we've finally reached that point now. Where
it's definitely a thing where if you go to the show, it's truly because you want to be there.
Yeah.
I was a little nervous, obviously, and I put up a post the Friday of the Olympia. I was kind of like, fuck, I'm not at the Olympia. You know what I mean? And Chris and I were going back and forth to Cito without me being there. And usually, well, you didn't see it.
Yeah, exactly.
You were there. So now it's like, nah, I saw it.
Like, I was there. And it's not, so you have to give the Olympia credit. And I know Dan Solomon was a big factor in the production of the Olympia this year. So, I mean, I know the person at the top kind of gets all the credit, but I mean, whatever they were doing, they were also allowing way more coverage from everyone else.
No, I was following Muscle Contest, John Lindsay's deal, for a lot of prejudging because they were putting it up quick, and their pictures were clear, their videos were clear. Like Flex Magazine, hate to say it to point somebody out, but their pictures were terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm watching it, and I was like, ooh, this guy looks terrible. Then I get on the Muscle Contest, I'm like, oh no, he's fine.
Dana Lynn Bailey was doing iPhone stories from the very front row, like standing on the floor in front of the stage.
Yep.
And I'm watching her iPhone stories, and it's like fucking HD, 10 feet away from Dexter as he's hitting the side chest. Bonak's right there in the pose down. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I was there and I didn't see that.
Yeah, no, the game has definitely changed in that regard. And I think it'll be interesting to see how you still want to go. Here's the funny part. If you knew all that, you'd have still wanted to be there because you want to be there when the Olympia is crowned. You know what I mean? Like, I would have still went to the show if I was there. I mean, it's a couple $100. Like, I'm going.
Yeah.
But it's definitely cool to see. And I do dig that a lot of people are seeing the same show, like you said now. Chris will text me something, and I'll go, what did Ron say? Because I already know. And he's like, I'm texting him next. But Jose said, because we've got our little small group of everybody that we have our little conversation on everything.
I got to give you the highlight of the weekend. The bodybuilding highlight of the weekend was I see Aceto in the parking lot after the finals. Right. I'm looking for him the whole time. I'm standing in the parking lot. I'm looking for Chris. I see Giles, and the MD guys doing an interview. I see I see all these guys doing their little interviews. I can't find Chris, and then finally I see him, and of course he's talking to someone and he's just laughing his ass off.
Right.
Like, he's in post show mode where he's just laughing, and I go over and I tap him and he turns and he's like, hey, and then first thing he goes. That, because Chris is a condition guy. He thought some of those top guys were off. He goes, that was like the Bellagio water show.
Add it to the Acetoisms.
And then he goes, and then I said, well, Brandon's quads weren't shredded. And he goes, shredded? He goes, how about separated? He goes, Rodin's quads, you could use your credit card, swipe or chip.
And there it is.
And I just looked at him. I was like, oh, Chris, you're savage. Swipe or chip. And I was like, because you could plug it in and just stay there.
I just love that because, I know you and I have joked about this, but I call him Acetoisms. He'll say something. I always tell him, I'll go, I'm adding that to the book.
Yeah. Rodin's quads were so shredded you could use your credit card, swipe or chip. That was the highlight of the weekend for me.
He posts that picture of him behind Rodin, and he just says, just saying, visit Rodin at the Olympia Nutrition booth.
Yeah, I love the one he put up the day before where he said, just chilling in the room, guess what year?
Right, yeah, exactly.
And then everyone's like, 2019, like that's today.
Now.
Yeah.
So it was fun to see, but I think it also will drive some real interest for next year.
So I think this Olympia was the way this Olympia ended. It ended like to me, it ended like one of those movies where the sequel is going to start like a John Wick.
Yeah.
Like Brandon wins, but there's and you deserves it. But there's so many questions.
Right, yeah. So the dot just happened. Oh, for sure.
Like, it's not an if it's coming. There's another one coming. It's coming right away. It's coming within a year. It's coming next September. And it's going to be a hell of a fucking show if the people that we think are going to show up.
No, I think that's what's exciting. This is the first year that, like, straight up right now, if somebody said the Olympia tickets are for sale, I'd buy some today.
Oh, fuck. I'm getting good ones next year. I'm not
going to be in the front row to watch this battle go down, much like, and I just hope it matches because I want everyone to show up. And I know that some of them won't because it just truthfully doesn't make sense anymore. Like, Kai Green never has a reason to compete again. But, man, if I could just get him to do it, just to see it, like, everybody that's still there, because we all know he has it, which I think drives me crazy. Kai, that's why everybody's like waiting, because it's like, well, dude, you need like 6 weeks.
Yeah, he carries all his muscle around still. It's nuts.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm stoked though for next year, and I think that's the draw. If you look at all the classes, man, that's how I feel when I walked out of the Olympia, or I should say, walked out of it. We're next year, holy shit! Like every classic, it's now a rivalry.
Yeah, it's now a rivalry. Yeah.
I mean, and then the Open, obviously we know what that is, and the 212, it's like, well, wait a minute, is it is cut and dry. And then you start listing that Flex Lewis has already said 2020, you are going to see me on the Olympia stage, the Open.
Yeah.
It's like, God, who's ready to go?
And then also Ramy. And I mean, it's I'm really excited for 2020. Maybe this is what bodybuilding needed.
You know, it might be. It definitely didn't hurt it. I can tell you that much. Because
Definitely
next
not.
Going to be another thing, and we're gonna see everybody at their best, and you know, and a lot of questions were answered. You know, like I do have to say, just so I can put it out there for William Bonac, because I know he's a huge follower of the show. That's not true, but he should be. I questioned what he would do without Neil, and though not perfect, he definitely shut it down any worries. Like, you know, he's just fine. So it's real good to see that, because I hated to see somebody I liked so much worry if they were going to stumble down to 6th, 7th. You know, so seeing him right there and arguably in a coin flip for top 3, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it was a crazy show. And, you know, in hindsight, it all makes sense.
Sure. And
there were some key moments, like I said, Bumstead winning was an amazing moment. The moment that Hottie and Dexter had was amazing. There was a lot of great stuff. And then Brandon with his family and his kids and all that. It was, you could tell like that was something, you know, I mean, he almost quit a few years ago.
Well, that's the sacrifice that people
almost retired.
That's a sacrifice that people don't know about with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And unless you've lived it, even when you hear about it, you don't understand the sacrifice that goes on behind the scenes. So I think it is always awesome when the family comes up, because those kids are sacrificing their dad, the mom is sacrificing. Brandy's got to take care of all the kids, and she doesn't have her husband. He's sacrificing living his kids' lives for them. It's his way of taking care of his family. Yeah, and he knows he can get it done. So to see that come to fruition, and for me, and I'm laughing, so everybody understand that, but the picture with him with the kids and Brandy holding the check over her head, like, yes.
Well, that's $400,000. You invest that correctly, your kids are going to go to college. They won't have any worries. They'll have health insurance for the rest of their lives. Yep. All that stuff that really is about taking care of your family. And, you know, the whole, you know, dad's not home thing. I mean, I come from a part of the country where, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of guys that live an oil field life. Like, that's just life for a lot of people that I grew up with. So, you know, Brandon going to Kuwait, and that's no different than a fighter going to camp or someone going away to, you know, serve their country for 6 months or something like that. It's just how it is. You bring home a check. That's how some people live their lives. So, Brandon, congratulations to Brandon. Thanks for the show, Dusty. Another good one. Absolutely. We're 6 episodes deep. Can you believe it?
I know, and the weirdest part about it, man, is I feel like we would do this. We have enough people supporting. Like, one of my favorite shows, I'm thinking, shit, there's only been 30.
Right. You know.
So now it makes sense that we're.
I'm excited to get. So, you know, everyone that you know doesn't know yet, we've moved over to a new channel. Obviously, if you're watching this, you know that. If you're listening on audio, you don't. But we're on the Think Big Bodybuilding Media channel. Just look for it on YouTube, and it's just bodybuilding. So thank Dusty. Episode 6 in the books. We do have a guest book for next week.
Yes, sir.
I know we're supposed to be alternating, but coming off the Olympia, it's hard to, you know, kind of, you know, when someone says they can come on, you're like, well, shit, we've got to have this guy on. Absolutely. So we have someone booked for next week. He's a great guest. We'll give you a hint. He just did the Olympia. And we'll just wait and announce more as we go.
Absolutely. Till next week.
It's just bodybuilding.